the Father. Amen. Even those of us who don't know much about art and sometimes couldn't tell one particular artist from another, we do recognize almost an iconic painting, in particular one part of that painting, and that is Michelangelo's Creation of Adam, painted on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel in Rome. In fact, that part of the painting is so, in a way, iconic and recognizable that if you look it up, you can see that it has been duplicated in so many ways, even to the point of satire. There's even a part of The Simpsons in which Homer Simpson duplicates this image. And you know the image I'm talking about. It's the creation of Adam, and it's the two hands and the two fingers sort of being very close to each other, but not quite touching. It is to capture that moment when God had just created Adam. Presumably, it had just happened. And there was just that little bit of separation between the two of them touching, God and man. And if you look more closely at the image, you can see that God is, in a sense, still pointing at Adam. But Adam's hand, his finger, is not really quite pointing at God. It begins to turn away. It begins to turn down just slightly. It's almost as if there's a movement that's taking place, that God has just created Adam. And at that very moment of separation, while God is still pointing and reaching out in a way to Adam, Adam is now drawing back a little bit from being directed at God. And in the painting, Adam, of course, is very strong and powerful looking. It's almost as if, and this actually did become the case, that Adam became fascinated not by the person who had created him, but fascinated with himself. His own power, his own hands. And really, the history of humanity can be narrated in some sense by that intoxication of power and what became an ability and an agility. Look what I can do with this hand, with my hands, with my strength, with my power. Look what I can do for myself. The hands that began to fashion tools, if you will, in primitive man. Tools that could make other things. Tools that could kill other living things and feed oneself through the killing of these animals. Hands that delighted in their ability to do things, to build, to have power over other creatures. And of course, as well, hands that would enjoy the touch of other hands. this narration, or a story, if you will, of these hands and this human existence discovering its own power, its own ability, its own agility, went on. To where, I suppose we could say we now, not just Adam, learned that those hands could also express thoughts. One could begin to write, to draw, to create what one might consider beauty, or to write books, to argue and to express, well, this is how I think the world is. This is who we are. I mean, you could go all the way to the later 20th century psychoanalysis. You know, books, and this is who we are. This is what truth is. This is what reality is. This is everything, that it's supposed to be. Or we begin to tell our own stories through our writing, through our use of our hands, through the creation of art. And of course, we go from clubs to nuclear weapons. That narration, in a sense, again, that once there became that little bit of separation of those two fingers and that drawing back of Adam in the freedom that God gave him and has given us, we were free to become again intoxicated, enamored with what we can do, what worlds we can conquer, what worlds we can build, what life we can create for ourselves and for others. We are the creator. And oftentimes we also do believe that we are in the business of creating our own lives. And if we didn't make it, it doesn't exist. And if we don't think it, it's not true. In today's gospel, we have two stories of healing. The Gentile woman, Syrophoenician, who wants her daughter healed. Jesus says this strange thing that I came really to feed the people. That you don't get, I'm here, what that means is I'm here for the people of Israel. Because, well, even dogs get the crumbs from the table. And that led to Jesus saying, there's faith here. Your daughter is healed. And then the man who's deaf and mute, and Jesus takes him over the side and rubs in his ears and says, be opened. And his ears are open, and he can speak again. And once he can hear and speak, what do they talk about? Apparently, even though they're told not to, they talk about Jesus. They tell other people about him. That's a wonderful vignette in and of itself. This person who didn't hear anything, the first words he hears is Jesus telling him to be open. And then the man who couldn't talk about anything, that's what he talks about. He talks about Jesus. These two healing stories, these two miracles, of course, the Gospels are full of them. We hear of other stories where people are pressing through the crowd, and there are people who, if they could just touch the hem of his garment, they think that they will be well. Or they go to beg Jesus for themselves, or they go to beg Jesus for the healing of others. And they can do this because Jesus is there. He's there in that village. He's there on that street. He's there to where people could actually ask him these things. He's there where people could actually touch the hem of his garment. He's there so that people's ears could actually be opened, or they could talk to him. He is in their midst. He is in some sense sharing their life. He's there to be encountered. He is there to be asked. He's there to be touched. What we have going on in these healing stories, which really tells us what we have going on in all of the Gospels, is that creative hand of God would not rest, would not accept the alienation, would not accept, in some sense, oh, go off and do your own thing and don't worry about me. Because we also know that while humans can be enamored with the power of what they can do through their minds, through their hands, we also know that they'll get into trouble. Damage will be done. Sin will do its job too. So in Jesus, God is there with that hand again, reaching out to humanity. And when humanity is ready to reach out back to God in this Jesus who is there with them, it really is no surprise that they do so with a withered hand, with a frail, shaking hand, if you will, a hand, a person who has come to the point where they know they cannot save themselves. In other words, they come back reaching out with that hand, those hands, almost when they have no other place to go. Nothing else they can do. They probably have tried everything else. We sometimes try everything else before we get to reaching out to feel the touch of God. So in these miracle stories, we are here that there is that hand of God in Jesus still there, even though we've pulled back, still there to be touched, still there with power, not only to create, but really to recreate, to resurrect. I may have mentioned this before, but there's that wonderful icon of the resurrection of Abraham and Sarah, where the risen Christ is yanking them out of their coffins, grabbing them by the wrist, pulling them out. So the gospel is that even though we've had the freedom to pull away after our creation. And even though we've become quite intoxicated and enamored with our abilities and our presumptive power, when we're ready to realize that that hand is weak, that flesh and will is not what we thought it was, that we cannot save ourselves, then we have a place to reach out, to be touched and recreated, and resurrected. To have the hand grasped by that other hand we thought we forgot. And when we do, then there's that grip that will not let go. For this is not the repeat of creation, a little touch and go away. This is a grabbing, holding, and yanking of us into the new life we were created to have. There's those two lines in today's collect. And again, you can take these home. Grant us, O Lord, to trust in you with all our hearts. For as you always resist the proud who confide in their own strength, so you never forsake those who make their boast of your mercy.